Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. Kathy Wright-Eager, leadership advisor, former Purdue swim coach. She has been through, mother of 2 wonderful children too, by the way, but we'll not even get into that all along. But actually, I will. Tyler's used to work at Gold and Black, and it was one of the best interns we've ever had. And son Tori is a senior at West Lafayette High School, and he can shoot the 3 like few can. So we enjoy watching him play basketball, and they're also learning as they go along. But this is the thing that's interesting as a leadership advisor, and I think one of the best programs that Purdue Athletics, your job, and even Morgan Burke has talked about this, your job is the athletic department. You want to win games, you want to win championships, but ultimately you want to develop leaders and great people. That's a challenge. But you have kids that know a little bit about that. But your job is to make sure that when they graduate, they know a lot more about it.
Absolutely. I think that's a key. I think it's a key to winning. Is to learn to tap into each one of them and to learn those leadership skills, and they have them in them. We as adults haven't given them that many opportunities to use them. And so that's one of the biggest things that I've learned in the last few years is to open the door. Tell them what you expect, and even if it's just silent for a while, let them figure it out and let them lead. They've got them they've got those qualities in them.
Well, and one of the things we're going to get into is this book by Tim Elmore, Generation IY, which is a fascinating read and talk about how that's kind of incorporated into the thinking and also what has been in front of Purdue student athletes in terms of the Leadership Academy, and talk a little bit about that, because it is a very unique program with a great name, of course, the John R. Wooden Leadership Academy. But give us a little bit about the framework of how that works in Purdue Athletics.
And this is a perfect week to talk about this, Alan, because I am on a high right now. I've gotten to meet with the emerging leaders, all of our incoming freshmen, and our Boilermaker Athletic Council in the last 5 days. So it's just been perfect. What we're trying to do here is trying to introduce leadership to the student athletes as soon as they come on campus. Of course, they aren't going to get it all at that time, but what we were doing in the past is waiting till, just letting them figure it out, and then when it was time for them to be a senior or a junior, and we called on their leadership, and it just came naturally. Well, what we found is we need to cultivate that a little bit. So what we're doing is it's almost like an internship, a leadership internship, and starting their freshman year, we start introducing some of these skills, and even soft skills like eye contact and shaking someone's hand. This generation is very used to having their head down, and they think that's the way you communicate. And one of the first things that we do is put that down and come in and talk to me face to face. I mean, I'm always like, eyes right here, look at me. And we had all of our incoming freshmen take this class called EDPS. And it's really just an introduction, and it's a small class. There's like 15 people in there from all 18 of our sports. So they get to mix and mingle and get to know each other, and it's about adjustment, and it's about leadership. And so this week we actually did role playing. It was kind of funny, and it seems kind of young, but we did role playing. I gave them a piece of paper, and they had to walk up to someone and pretend that they were the professor, and hello, my name's Alan Karpick, and I am on the baseball team, and there's a possibility that I might be leaving. And so we just did that, and they laughed. We made it funny. I mean, some of them, we were like, you don't call him dude. You make sure that you enunciate, and you don't text them when you're standing right there. I mean, just go talk to them. So we did that, and then we also had each one of them, and think about this, when you were 18, if you could have done this, in front of their peers, they had to stand up and introduce themselves and say, these are my strengths. After 16 weeks or a semester at Purdue University, this is what I've learned. These are my strengths. These are my weaknesses, and this is one thing I definitely need to improve on this semester in order to be a more successful student athlete. And it was so neat. I left there, I couldn't even sleep that night. I was so excited. And just the things that they talk about, and the things that they can look in the mirror and totally analyze themselves. And that's the kind of culture we're trying to create. so that they know, because they've seen the upperclassmen do that.
Yeah.
Like, I know I need to get better at this, and this is what I'm going to work on. So the upperclassmen are modeling the behavior we want our younger ones to do.
Now, and you obviously have coached student athletes in Purdue Swimming for all the years that you did that, and very successfully. But this, how different is this group? This, you know, the ones that are going to graduate in 2016. What different challenges do you see for them, and what is the environment that these kids face, not only as athletes, student athletes, but as students at a Big Ten school?
Absolutely. All right, so the biggest change, honestly, is this generation. They call it the, the YI, or the, IY generation, because of the iPad, the iPhone, they are a very technology savvy generation. And the other thing, there's two other aspects. One is when we were young and we got to go outside and play for hours. And we weren't interrupted by any adults. We made our own rules. We rode our bikes to the park. We had to be home when the street lights came on. When I say that, my kids are like, "Oh, you sound like Wilma Flintstone, Mom,"
That's
But
right.
it's true. We had a lot of unsupervised time. When you get to play like that, that actually taps into your leadership. Well, as parents, we kind of took that away. Our kids started playing Y basketball when they were 5.
Right.
And we would schedule. They have Boy Scouts and Y basketball, and then soccer, and then we kind of overscheduled them a little bit, I think, and so we took away some of those opportunities. And then the third thing is, this is the most tolerant generation America has ever raised. I mean, Alan, they don't see color. I mean, you could be Muslim, you can be atheist, you can be Catholic, you can be heterosexual, you could be homosexual. They don't care. I mean, they really are very, very non-judgmental, which is beautiful. I mean, that's really their gift.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when you work as a team, sometimes they can be too tolerant. And I don't mean about religion or sexual orientation or anything like that. I'm talking about rules. So one of our biggest goal was to get everyone on the same page. What are going to be your team's goals, and what are you going to hold everyone accountable for? So if someone is staying out way too late, someone has to talk to them, because the coach doesn't always know that. And so you want your leaders to say, "Hey, you're out too late. Let's go. We're going to go in at 12. Let's follow me." Or, get your butt to class. You need to go to class. And what we're finding is that's the hardest part of being the leader, is calling out a friend, a teammate, because they feel like that's judgmental. Even if it's someone skipping class or cutting or drinking or, so that's what we've really had to work on, and we have to practice it. We do role playing all the time.
How do you get them, though, to pass that? Because, they talk about it being all the paradoxes that kids face, and one of them is that they're tolerant, but they're also, they're almost starving for rules. How do you get them over that hump to get them to be the point where they can call out a teammate or a friend in need, so to speak?
Well, I think what's happening is they are seeing the results themselves. Again, not by an adult, because deep down inside, the kids want a leader.
Yeah.
They really do. And so, I'll take Jacqueline Hart is the story that comes to mind. I mean, she was such a quiet leader. Ryan Kerrigan, same thing. They're quiet leaders, and they knew they were going to have to speak up. It wasn't it wasn't comfortable for them, but they did it. And then all of a sudden, everyone started respecting them that much more. So they started feeling it, and then it was like, oh, the team really does want this. I mean, they actually like you more when you're the leader, even if you have to be the bad guy sometimes.
Now the P word, parents, of which we both are, and we alluded a little bit to some of the challenges that parents have bestowed on this generation, because there's no question, they talk, and even the book talks about kids are their trophies in some ways. In some ways, and it's not all negative, but they want we as parents put so much effort into it. How do you and how do the coaches deal with the fact that you have active parents that are involved? Sometimes by definition, if these kids have played AAU or played travel this, travel that to become a Division I caliber athlete. What strategies do you have to do, and how do you talk to the kids about their parents, or can you do that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's one of our first conversations in Emerging Leaders is, all right, I'll just say, all right, guys, this is going to be a fun topic tonight, and we're going to talk about parents. And then I can pull up a video. Have you ever seen the Saturday Night Live where the parents think their kids are, you know, all that, and they're like,
Christina Applegate, I think.
Exactly,
that's right.
yeah. And I've got this trophy for this, and I'm great. My mom and dad say I can do anything that I want to do. So we kind of if I can get them laughing, for some reason they learn a lot easier. So then we just have open conversations about it and talk about it. I mean, one of my biggest learning tools right at the very beginning is drive your own car. You're in college now. You know, you are behind the wheel. You need to tell mom and dad, excuse me, but could you get in the back seat? I'm driving. I mean, if you're going to be successful or if you're going to fail, it's going to be because of you, no one else. So, and if that means you tell your mom and dad, please do not call the coach. Please don't do anything without, you know, talking to me. I'm an adult now. I want you to treat me like an adult. But we have to practice that. They've never said that before. You know, think about that. I mean, have you ever heard Reed or Tori say that? Treat me like an adult, you know?
Not yet.
But they will, but so anyway, I think that's one of the things about the Leadership Institution is that all those hard subjects that are sometimes hard to talk about, we have to talk about them.
Actually, I have heard my son say that because he turned 18 and he now tells us, I'm 18. He's getting his way there. I think one of the things interesting in the book as well, you know, the descriptors for parents, the helicopter parent I've heard of, but the karaoke, the dry cleaner parent, are Purdue parents, are they more, because again, these are elite kids by definition that get, most of them that get scholarships or play at a Division I level. Are they ones that by and large are the groupie parent where they relish in their sons or daughters' accomplishments? I mean, how do you categorize most of them? Are they of all different flavors?
I think they're all different flavors, and I think honestly they come in as certain parents, and hopefully if we're successful with what we're doing, then they're going to start backing off as we empower the student athlete, and that's our goal. To empower them, they're making the decisions, they're communicating their own needs. We do not want them coming in, you know, going to an interview. I mean, they can come on a college visit, that's different. But, you know, we're hearing of some parents going on, you know, interviews with their kids or negotiating their salaries. No. You know, we want them to learn to do that. And I think it's up to the student athlete to teach their parent that now. It's almost like we've gone, you know, we've done a little role reversal here. You know, again, you're the driver, mom, dad, I can handle this, do not call the coach, you know, I'll work this out.
Well, I think one of the interesting things is because, again, by definition, if you're a Division I swimmer or you play basketball, you have to know how to physically struggle. But the thing I thought that Tim Elmore brought out very much in the book, and that we, I think, all intuitively know, that is they need to learn how to struggle.
Absolutely.
If they don't know how to struggle, they won't know what it's like to, you know, to be told no. They get told no by their coaches, but maybe they need to be told no by their parents, their peers, so that they can actually emotionally grow. There's a lot to do with it, emotional growth as much as intellectual and physical growth.
I find that to be one of the biggest challenges. If I go around and ask the student athletes, you know, who is the most inspirational person to you? Who is your best friend? I'm not kidding you, like 90% of them say my mom, my dad, you know. So I have to now say, other than your mom and dad, who is, so then if a coach yells at them or, you know, really gets all over them, they just take it so personally. So one of the biggest things that we're doing now is we're doing the DISC assessment on each one of our student athletes, which kind of shows them, you know, if they're a little sensitive, it will kind of point that out. And so then we also have done the DISC on all the coaches. So then we can say, now look, your coach is a high D and they want results. So, you know, when you miss your flip turn or if you miss the tackle or if you strike out, they're going to want results. Of course they're going to be disappointed. Don't take it personally, just let that drive you. Be a little tougher.
One of the things that we talked off air, and I think one of the, you know, there are difficult lessons that student athletes have to learn, and certainly in football this year, you had a coaching change, and a coach that a lot of the players related to, of course, and Coach Danny Hope. You now have a new guy. What lesson and is that something that you would talk up to kids on a one-on-one basis, or do you try to address that as a group? I mean, there are difficulties, obviously, that they have to face. Things change, coaches leave, those kind of things as well.
We addressed that at both the Emerging Leaders and the Boilermaker Athletic Council. It was one of the first items on the agenda. And we talked about this being a business, and just the same as I was saying, don't take it personally. The coaches can't take that personally either. It's about a business. The boys loved Danny Hope. I will say that. They really did. And that was hard on them. And then they felt like, oh gosh, now I'm not being loyal. Who am I supposed to be loyal to? Coach Hope or Purdue? And now there's a new coach. Who am I? And you know, even though, I mean, they're still young. They're still kids. And it was hard. So we just kind of talked through it. Morgan helped talk through that too at the BAC with them. And the Emerging Leaders, they're younger. They're a little more scared because they, you know, some of the freshmen were like, what if they don't want me? What if the new coaches don't want me? And we were like, just work for it. You know, it's again, that's a tough lesson and it's an obstacle. And I was like, you're fine. You got here. You know, you earned a spot here. Keep working. And but we did. We talked, even like when we lost those games in a row, it's the first thing on the agenda. It was, all right, we can bounce back. Do not give up. A Purdue athlete will never throw in the towel. We're going to fight back.
Okay, now the captain's table meets once a month, and Emerging Leaders as well,
once a month,
And so it gives you a chance really to, and then they also go through the last thing I want to ask you about is talk about how they get a certificate basically at the end. If it's set up to be a 4-year program, and you have guest speakers every month. Obviously, you've had some very interesting ones I luckily have been able to go to, including Matt Light and Roosevelt Colvin on down the line. Talk a little bit about that program and how they get that certification at the end.
So if the student athlete chooses to really be involved in the program, they can come to those. If they come to 15, or approximately about 15, that's how many blocks are in his pyramid of success, John Wooden's. If they come to those over their 4 or 5 years, they can earn a leadership certification. And usually I have the group come over to my house, we sit down and we watch, this is the neatest video of John Wooden, why he picked every single one of those blocks. He cites poetry, he's such, you know, an amazing man, a character, you know, and I warn the kids, you guys, you're used to music and YouTube and fast moving. This is a 90-year-old man that's going to be reciting poetry and talking for 39 straight minutes. And I mean, you could hear a pin drop when they listen to it. And some of them say, can we listen to that again? And so I think, I mean, they really do learn a lot from it. And that's when I know they really get it. And even before they watch the video, Alan, I mean, now we're starting to see people that have been in the program. Bruce Gaston, over Christmas, I get an email from him, and he's like, Miss Kathy, would you please look over this, you know, and it's like a 4-page paper on leadership. And I was like, Bruce, are you taking an online class? And he goes, no, these are just my thoughts, and I'm not going to class now. I'm just going to practice, so I have a lot of time, and I just want you to look it over. And then you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, the light bulb is coming on.
Yes, and that's the greatest feeling.
Well, I can't think of a better person and a better resource than Kathy Wright-Eager, and someone that can positively bring that message forward. And we could go on and on about this. We will do this again. It is an amazing program, and it is something that isn't publicized very much, but it is extremely important, and I think a recruiting advantage it can be for Purdue down the road. So. I always call you Coach, but Kathy, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll do this again because there's a lot more to talk about on Purdue's program and its importance of leadership and what it does and what it can do for student athletes. All right, thanks so much, and we'll take a 2-minute break and bring Kyle and Josh in, and we'll talk some football recruiting. Stay tuned on Gold and Black Live.
Going to the Purdue game? Stay at Hilton Garden Inn, West Lafayette at the Wabash Landing. Your family will love the well-appointed guest rooms, the pool, whirlpool, fitness center, the breakfast buffet, and the amazing Hilton Garden Inn staff. Located just 4 blocks from Purdue University, Hilton Garden Inn has long been the choice for Purdue fans. Call today for a reservation and make Hilton Garden Inn your #1 choice.
Check Check out the Purdue collection now at Follett's. Boiler up with Nike Fantastic T-shirts, League and Champion fashion colors. Simply fabulous, simply Follett's. Purdue pride everywhere on game day. Nike sideline, worn by the team, by the players, and by you. And make every day game day with tailgate toss. Follett's, Purdue pride, a Purdue tradition, 17 game day locations.
Good driver? We've got a discount for that and a lot more. See State Farm agent Trent Johnson to make sure you get all the discounts you deserve on your car insurance. Saving you money? It's just part of being there. Call or visit Trent today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Red light's on. We are on segment 3. Josh Helmholtz, God love you for hanging loose for a bit. We ran a little long our last segment with Kathy Wright Eager. We get to talking sometimes, and that's what happens. But Josh, welcome to the show, and Kyle, welcome back. Purdue football recruiting, and obviously we talked in segment 1 about Daryl Hazel saying this is going to, he wants to get the rest of his staff put together, but obviously from now until February 6th, this is the attention of all coaches around the country. Josh, Purdue's has some challenges ahead of it, certainly on the recruiting front.
Yeah, they've got challenges, but they have opportunity as well. I mean, you look at the class of 2013 in the state of Indiana, which is their home territory, and it's an outstanding class. And they got another good class coming in 2014. And then you look up in the Chicago area, and 2014 is one of the best classes I've seen, early on coming out of that region. And that should be, that's home base right there for Purdue football. And they've got an opportunity to make a dent. Now they need to get the boots on the road and start getting that done.
Hey, Josh, Kyle here. Just what do you think about Daryl Hazel's philosophy as far as recruiting the Midwest? Obviously, Danny Hope made it quite a priority to go down to Florida. Joe Tiller recruited the Midwest, but also made Texas a pretty big priority. Can a focus on the Midwest, Indiana, Ohio, and the Chicago area in particular, can that be successful?
Oh, I think it has to be successful if you're going to have any success, because when you're recruiting kids in state, when you're recruiting kids in Chicago, if you're Purdue and all the great players they pulled out of that region, you can compete for the best players against the top programs around the country. When you're an out-of-region team going into Florida, going into Texas, you're competing for the second-tier players. You're not going to go head-to-head with a Florida State and pull a kid all but maybe once every 10 years, So you can compete for the best players in your own territory, but you're going to be competing for second-tier players in Florida and Georgia and these other places. I mean, if you want to compete for Big Ten titles, year in and year out, you need those top-end players. So I think your recruiting strategy has to start in-state, has to start in Chicago, and you got to be in Ohio, which is a huge talent pool in the Midwest.
And Josh, Purdue obviously this weekend, we talked a couple hours ago before this about 5 or 6 guys that are making official visits this weekend, a big recruiting weekend for the Boilermakers. And I noticed a couple commitments, but a couple guys or 4 guys from the state of Ohio coming in. talk, I know you've seen some of these guys play, Antoine Miles, defensive end, and some of the others, Corey Crenshaw from Cleveland, an athlete. Talk a little bit about some of the guys that you've seen that are coming in this weekend.
Yeah, I've seen Antoine Miles. He's had a real interesting recruitment. Committed to Nebraska for about a day and then opened to pick back up. And
yeah.
Looked like he was going to go to Cincinnati earlier in the fall. Then about a couple weeks ago, it looked like Kentucky was where he's going to go. Now Purdue's really making some noise in his recruitment. So be interesting to see how that official visit goes this weekend. Could he pop for the Boilermakers this weekend? I think that's a possibility. Definitely Kentucky, I know, is in that battle. I'm not sure exactly how strong of a threat they are again right now. But at this point, Antoine Miles, definitely a guy I think Purdue can get and add. I mean, you're talking about 12 commits with 2.5 weeks to go until National Signing Day. You got to start putting bodies on those letters of intent, and I think Antoine Miles is one they can shore up pretty quickly.
Hey, Josh, what do you think about Nate Wozniak? He's been sort of an interesting story too, I think, in that it's been his finalist Purdue and Miami for so long that he sort of, from a publicity standpoint, I guess, fell off the radar for a while. Where does he stand right now? Is he still looking at those two, or have some others come into the picture?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, he named Purdue and Miami his final two way back in the summer, and then didn't do anything all fall.
Yeah.
We thought he'd take official visits in September. He didn't. He finally took an official to Miami in December, and I think that was real telling, the aftermath of that. He did not commit when he was at Miami, and he also started talking Minnesota. So it looks like Minnesota's going to get an official visit the weekend of January 25th and be that third team in this race. But I think him going down to Miami last month, not committing, not really saying, yeah, they're my definite leader, just not having that real strong positive vibe, after leaving Coral Gables, I think makes this probably a Big Ten race, and I think puts Purdue in the driver's seat, especially with this official visit coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
A good official visit, that could end pretty quickly.
Yeah, and was he 6'9"?
Yeah.
He's going to be interesting.
Interesting prospect, no matter where he turns out.
Yeah,
I think
Kyle,
either on the line or at tight end, certainly.
Yeah, no question on that. The other guy you talked about that is making a visit this week and has committed, Tyval Jamison, that's coming to Purdue. Talk a little bit about him, because he's somebody that you said you've seen and liked over time.
Yeah, he's a teammate of Jalen Smith up
Yeah.
at Fort Wayne Bishop Luers, the number 3 player in the country. So obviously Jalen got a lot of attention, but that team was loaded at the defensive back position, one of them being Anthony Spencer's little brother.
Yeah.
So, and that was, and him and Tyval were very outstanding this past season again. 4 state titles that group has won since they've been at Bishop Luers. Jemison's a guy who I think, he had some academic concerns, got those fixed, and I think a lot of teams look back on that now and go, man, I wish we would have kept a little bit closer tabs on him, because he is a Big Ten cornerback, outstanding size, very fluid, can stay with any of the top wide receivers. I saw him do that in the spring and in the summer at many of these 7-on-7 and camps and combines. I like Tyval Jamison a lot. I think he's a steal of an in-state pickup, and I think he can do some big things at Purdue.
Hey, Josh, Jake Replogle has been sort of quiet throughout this whole process. After the coaching change from Danny Hope to Daryl Hazel, is this a big weekend? Is he solid with Purdue in your opinion? Do they need to sort of re-up with him a little bit this weekend, or is everything fine there?
Anytime you have a coaching change, you got to re-up with each of the guys. I mean, most of these guys just want to be, make sure that their scholarships are intact, and that they still have an opportunity. About half the guys make a decision regardless of who's in the head coach's chair. Replogle obviously was interesting because all of his brothers went to Indiana.
Yeah.
And he made the early commitment to Purdue, but I haven't heard anything that would suggest that he's not solid. That this weekend isn't just going through the motions and making sure everything was as it was before.
Right.
So at this point, yeah, an important weekend, but at the same point, he's not a guy I'd get real nervous about at this point.
We're getting some questions in here, and with respect to that. And Kyle, I know you had talked about from Mark at moosetracks.com, or Mark in Ohio, talking about the verbal recruits. This is back from a half hour ago. Purdue Law has lost four to our
yeah.
count to this.
And the timeline's a little bit weird, you know, as far as talking about when some of those guys, you know, decommitted, whether it was just before Danny Hope got
Randy
fired
Gregory,
or just after. You know, but I guess if you count the whole last couple of months, the total is 4, from Randy Gregory to Kyle Shortridge to Parker Cothran, and then the most recent, you know, and I guess the only one that has been post Daryl Hazel has been the offensive lineman from down in Florida, Daryl Johnson. So it has been sort of interesting that those have been line prospects, which I think makes you know, the defensive line and offensive line here over the next month for Hazel and company pretty important.
Though he does have a lot of those guys coming back. But looking at the landscape of the Big Ten, and I know Purdue's ranking 11th, 12th in the Rivals rankings, and yet
I said Daryl Johnson. I meant Dwayne Johnson,
yeah,
by the way.
Dwayne. You know, it's certainly Josh. I mean, how much stock should Purdue place in that? And I also want you to comment on who is the surprise team in the Big Ten this year. And we know Ohio State and Michigan are blowing the doors off, but what else is who has been a surprise in terms of where they've been in recruiting, either up or down in the league?
Well, I think both of those things tie in on one level, and that is how concerned should they be? Obviously, you want to be recruiting and bringing in the caliber of players that can compete in the Big Ten, and if everybody in the Big Ten's out recruiting, that's a concern. But what's even more concerning, I think, for Purdue is that now Kevin Wilson's starting to pull in 4-star talent down there in Bloomington. That's never happened. I mean, you know, Indiana, you know, has always been a team that recruits at the bottom of the Big Ten and usually finishes at the bottom of the Big Ten when the final rankings come out in the end of November. Now he's pulling in guys like Antonio Allen and David Kenny and Darius Latham, 4-star guys, and even going into Georgia and pulling a 4-star kid. So that, if I'm Purdue, is concerning to me and shows me that, hey, I got to get my stuff together and get things working so that, you know, I'm competing, not just, you know, I'm competing in the Big Ten, but competing around the country for these top caliber players.
Josh, sort of in your travels around the Midwest, I would imagine you get a pretty good feeling for what coaches make what kind of impacts as far as, you know, assistants to head coaches and things. Just do you know anything about the group of, as of now, 6 assistants that Purdue has on board, and perhaps what kind of impact they could have in recruiting?
Yeah, and I think the guy that, you know, really kind of opens my eyes and makes me feel old, because I covered him coming out of high school, was Marcus Freeman.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a unique bond that he's able to have there because he just came out of his college career. He wasn't recruited that long ago. He's closer in age to these kids. He understands these kids. That's a great asset to have. And I think these kids, you know, especially kids in Ohio, they haven't forgot Marcus Freeman either. And so he has a name around there. And the coaches, high school coaches and staffs that he goes in and recruits with, they know him. They know who he is. They saw him come up. They've got to trust that, you know, that builds trust, and trust is so important in recruiting. So I think Marcus Freeman's the one to watch. He could end up becoming the recruiting dynamo of this new staff.
Yeah.
All right, one last question before we let you go, and we're going to have to close out the show. The talk about the other Big Ten, you know, the SEC style of recruiting where verbal commits are free game for anyone. Are you seeing more or less of that? I mean, obviously Urban Meyer coming into the league has caused some of that, though it went on before that as well. What are you seeing from that standpoint, and how the Big Ten is handling that particular issue among coaches?
Yeah, there's more of that, and obviously a verbal commitment is worth the paper it's written on. So,
yeah.
But as you got kids committing earlier and earlier, these are going to happen more and more often. And if you're a college coaching staff, I believe you've got to recruit all the way to the end, because situations change both with the kid and with other schools and with your school. And it's something you just got to do. You got to recruit all the way to National Signing Day.
All right, Josh, thanks so much. I know you are going to have, I don't know if you'll have sleepless nights, but you're not going to have all the sleep you want from now until the 6th of February. We appreciate your time very much. We'll probably have you on again as we get into signing day, but good luck and be safe on your travels, and thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right, Kyle, last comment. You know, obviously it's going to be an interesting few weeks for Daryl Hazel. You get the sense that he's got his hands on the reins of what's going on, but he has a big job ahead of him.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you know, he's had a busy last 6 weeks or whatever it's been. The next 3 or 4 are going to be I think, equally busy because you do have a lot of work to do. I don't know if catch up is the right word. Perhaps it is, but you've got what he said, 8 slots to fill. I think that there are some critical, as you look, on the website, we've sort of spent the last week and a half breaking down Purdue position by position, and it's sort of as you do that, you look and see things that maybe you don't see when you look at it in a big picture point of view. And they've got some spaces where they need some guys, and they've lost 3 commitments on the defensive line over the last month. And as you look at the defensive line, they certainly have to restock in that area. So I think that in particular is a pretty critical place to look here over the next month. Offensive line too. I think you always want young guys in the pipeline. They're set at quarterback, and sort of as you look at one position that really over the last decade has never felt like it's been very solidified. That's been linebacker, and I think it's pretty important that maybe they get a guy or 2 at that position here in this class, and that might take some work here over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, you got to go back to Nico Kudavitis and Gilbert Gardner.
Yeah,
and that to really define a lot of stability. There's been some
really
other guys.
You've had individual guys, I think, over the last decade, but really the last time you had 3 guys that you could march out there every Saturday and say these are 3 quality linebackers was way back in 2003.
Yeah. All right, we're going to have the questions are still rolling in. We're out of time. So, Kyle, thanks again so much. Thank you also to Gordon and Lydia and Kim and all the folks at WLFI and WLFI.com. We'll replay at least 2/3 of this show, probably starting with Kathy Wright-Eager and also into the recruiting. We'll have that posted around dinner time tonight, and we'll be back next week, I'm sure, to talk more basketball, football, and football recruiting, and whatever else will happen in the next week. Maybe some Monte Teo. I want to stay away from that. Or
I don't even know where you would start there.
Yeah, I don't know either.
We get a Lance Armstrong there.
Yeah, we get a Lance Armstrong. We'll be all the way up to speed. But thanks also to our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, and of course Follett's Purdue Pride. Jeff Julick and the gang over there has done a great job with Purdue over the years. We thank them very much for their support, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week on Gold and Black Live.